Good morning, everybody. Sam here, United People's TV, here to kick off another international break. And last international break, we went into it off the back of being spanked by Liverpool. And it was a bad one. And it lasted, well, it felt like it lasted a long time. This international break, we're coming into it off the back of being beaten by Spurs, humiliated by Spurs, let's be honest, in the second half. Well, I should say, after Casemiro made his two mistakes. Then that game away at Porto, and then now that game against Aston Villa. And will INEOS sack Erik Ten Hag during the international break? I think now is a very, very fair question to be asking. Oh, man, that was a bad game against Villa. Was it an improvement? I mean, we got a point. We didn't lose. So technically, that's an improvement from Spurs, but is that progress towards the Manchester United we want to see? No, that was Manchester United, sort of, as I said in my match reaction, battening down the hatches. Now, I'm going to bring you everything that's been said by David Ornstein, Gary Neville, Henry Winter, everything from around the news. And the one thing I want to say here quickly, right, straight away before I go and say hello to everyone in the comments. Why is anybody talking about, oh, Ten Hag is surviving, Ten Hag hasn't been sacked, blah, like already, now, immediately, after the game against Villa? Ladies and gents, INEOS are meeting on Tuesday, right? 0 is going to be happening before said meeting, which has already been in the books for a long time, all right? So, weird to get beside yourself because Erik Ten Hag hasn't been sacked already by Monday morning. Oh, my God. INEOS are having a meeting on Tuesday, all right? So, nothing is going to happen before then. And that's the first thing I would say to you before we get into this show here today. And as always, please send in your comments, and I will try and involve as many of you as I possibly can, but it's going to be... In fact, I'm probably going to start a poll here to kick off the show, right? Will INEOS stick with Erik Ten Hag? And I don't know what you're talking about the meeting being today. It's already been preordained. The Athletic have already reported it. Unless you've got some sort of inside scoop, then yeah, it's tomorrow. Will INEOS stick with Erik Ten Hag? Right? There you go. That's going to be the poll for today. And I want to know where you stand now. All right? Let me say hello to everyone. Good morning to Carl. I can see you there. Josh as well. Chris, can I say to everyone as well, just don't descend into squabbles, like schoolyard squabbles in the comments, or I just won't be able to engage with you. If you want to descend the chat into mayhem, I can't decipher a good conversation out of it, and I'll just have to talk to you. All right? If you want it to be an interactive show, you have to interact with me. Don't just sit there punching each other in the face. That's what I would say there. And good morning to everyone on Facebook as well. We've got Musa, we've got Jay, we've got John, Alan. And on YouTube, we've got JC. Good morning to you, dude. Natasha, Rex. You know what I'm sorry I'm going to have to start with this. And this is just a personal feeling, right? Do you know what that game against Villa reminded me of? Louis van Gaal. That's what that game reminded me of. Seeing Manchester United have quite a large element of control without creating anything. So Manchester United are pretty decent defensively without really threatening the opposition. That's what that game felt to me yesterday. And anybody who's followed the channel will know that I will stand in my corner and I will say that is the worst football I've ever seen Manchester United play. In terms of the Man United identity, the Louis van Gaal football was the biggest polar opposite from it. Now, it was effectively like damage limitation for Erik Ten Hag. After the game against Spurs, after the game against Porto, he switched it up. It wasn't rotation. I don't really... it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't in that situation where Ten Hag's saying it's rotation, because he could have said, well, Martinez and De Ligt played crap, so I took him off. But then people would have a go at Erik Ten Hag for throwing his players under the bus. And on the other hand, people are having a go for Erik Ten Hag, pretty much lying, obviously, and saying that they were rotated. But he's chosen that one. I think that's probably the lesser of the two evils in that sense. But Erik Ten Hag broke an unwanted record yesterday. A really, really unwanted record. And this is now Manchester United's worst start to a Premier League season after 7 games. I'll pull the full table up here, right? Unfortunately, I've got to scroll down. Manchester United down here in 14th place. Played 7 games, won 2, drawn 2, lost 3, 5 goals scored with 8 points. That's where Manchester United are right now. And if we go to last season, and we talk about progress, we talk about development. They're the two cornerstones, I think, of INEOS's thought process. Right? Last season, after 7 games, Manchester United were in 10th place with 9 points. This season, we're in 14th place with 8 points. And man, there was so much wrong with yesterday, man. I know full well that Manchester United defensively were much better against Aston Villa. I don't really think the measure was very difficult after what we saw against Spurs, after what we saw against Porto. But we closed up shop, kept off 4th clean sheet. Andre Onana, by the way, is leading the Premier League in the Golden Glove race. Do you know how mad that is? There's a super chat there, and then some. Who's that? Gifting 5. Eric, thank you very much for gifting 5 this morning, dude. To everybody, please get into the Discord. It must be one of the only sane places in the world to speak to other United fans. Or maybe not, actually. Rex, you're saying, I think INEOS will need to make a call on the dressing room. Doesn't matter how the results so much. If the dressing room is lost, he will go. Well, that's just, we're not going to be speculating about whether or not Erik Ten Hag has lost the dressing room, all right? That's not something I will ever do on this channel. But unfortunately for Erik, it's kind of everywhere you look. It's been an awful start to the season. And this is coming from somebody who prefers to see the positive side of things. It's just my natural disposition in life. It's not just related to football. It's just I like to see the best in people rather than the worst. I like to see the best in United rather than the worst and focus on that. I mean, like wherever you look, you struggle beyond belief to try and pull anything positive from that. And I don't think in any way, shape, I'm going to say this here quickly. I don't think in any way, shape or form does my voice represent the feeling of United fans. I speak my opinion and I engage with the whole community we've got here. However, I think United We Stand does. And I think that front cover, the latest front cover that's coming out in the November issue of United We Stand from Stan Chow, it's just, it encapsulates the mood that there is among United fans. With Erik Ten Hag, we all, when he came in, he was one of the up-and-coming managers. He had a philosophy. We've seen what Ajax have done, and that concept of a blend of the best of Ajax with the best of United's identity got me so excited for what it could be going forward. And then the second season, it unravelled because Erik Ten Hag took not a punt, he took a massive misdirection with the 1 number 6 and 2 number 8s and recruiting towards that style, and it just blew up in his face, and he refused to change across the course of the season, and we got picked apart the whole season. Right, it's our worst ever Premier League season last season. Only bettered now by our worst ever Premier League start to this season, which is worse than last season. And there's no mitigating circumstances about injuries. Erik Ten Hag had 6, 7 signings on the bench yesterday. And that's what yesterday was in no way, shape or form a game where we measure progress. yesterday was a one-game situation where we kind of dropped, and by the way, correctly dropped what we were doing in previous games. The inverted fullback is one of the biggest tactical errors I think Ten Hag's put on this team because the whole structure just doesn't work. Probably, and that's part of it. Not probably, it doesn't work. The complications of players should be here sometimes, but then here somewhere else. No one really knows what they're doing, and we can't build up as a consequence. Now, I'm going to go down and read some of your comments here, but just everywhere you look, it's bad. And I'm going to go into that one more time. The fact that I am sitting here this morning and saying that I felt that game yesterday was like Van Gaal is the worst thing I could probably say about Ten Hag. Because the Van Gaal football is the worst I feel we've played post-Fergie. That's what that game was yesterday. Was it Dimitar Berbatov went as far as to say the players should be ashamed because Johnny Evans was our man of the match, and he was our man of the match because we played in a way which suited him. Box defending. I'm going to go read some of your comments out down now. All right? There's a couple of super chats, and I'll read some regular comments too. Halftime Orange is saying, yesterday sort of felt worse to me, to be honest. Zero attacking threat against an absolutely flat Villa side. That can't be progress at all. Yesterday wasn't about progress. And that's why that game, I don't really think can, like people saying, oh, like Gary Neville here. Like, how? How on earth does that Villa game change any sort of conversation of a narrative inside the heads of Manchester United's football board? It's not progress. It was a clean sheet. It was Man United up against an informed Villa team who, yeah, as everybody's saying in the comments, they were flat. They had the high of Bayern Munich during the week, and they were there for the taking for any team that had half a cutting edge. I'm sure you all did it. When Garnacho was going through there with like 2 minutes to go, I'm like, it's just find the pass. And I was like, you know, that Roy Hodgson meme where he's just looking at it and just goes, everybody's just flat. Chris is saying, don't know why fans expect all summer signings to work right away in 10 games. Don't think that's what all fans are expecting. However, to have 6 of your signings on the bench is indicative of the game plan that you have for Aston Villa is not the game plan you have for Manchester United going forward. So I think anyway. And you're saying man of the match, Johnny Evans, enough said. Yeah, we'll speak about that later. Sai, you're saying the worst United season I've seen was either 13-14 or 21-22. But to be fair, this season could end up rivaling those two. Yeah, I mean, you can easily... The contrast of watching United win the league to watching United under Moyes was pretty damn bad, I'll be honest. Well, only lasted 7 months. And Guy Bramani saying that game felt exactly what it was, a mid-table team against a top 4 team. It was woeful from us. Now, let me go and read some other comments out from you. See what you're saying. Right, there's 900 votes in so far. And 55% of you think that INEOS will stick with Erik Ten Hag, and 45% of you don't think he will. Brian, you're saying we had a harder European game this week away in Portugal on Thursday compared to at home to Bayern on Wednesday. Extra day recovery, no travelling. But Brian, I don't particularly feel that game was about physical fatigue yesterday. I don't think I saw that and thought, oh, look, Villa are sort of 2 yards faster in every sense. I didn't think that at all. I think it was just down to a sheer lack of quality was the reason why we couldn't break Aston Villa down. Bruno Fernandes, someone that I love, man, just everything he touched yesterday, just completely wrong. Every pass was overhit. It's almost like this, when you got too much adrenaline in your legs. And he's just, every pass was 2 yards too far or 4 yards overhit. But yeah, I completely disagree with the concept of what Gary Neville's saying there. I don't see how that game buys Erik Ten Hag any time. Now, of course, easy enough to say that, Sam. Had Manchester United lost, then the pressure would have been even more so. So in that sense, that's where it's coming from. But that's not going to be something which shifts an opinion which exists inside the heads of Ashworth, of Barada. And it's Ashworth is... Who would you say is the most important... Now, of course, Jim Ratton... I'm going to put this into the comments. Of course, Jim Ratcliffe is the man who has to sign off on the decision. But who actually leads on that decision? Is it going to be Omar Barada, our CEO? Because I think it's going to be Dan Ashworth. Dan Ashworth is our football director. He directs the football. Omar Barada, as the CEO, connects the football to the other parts of the business and brings them all under one umbrella. And Jim Ratcliffe, as the owner, will listen to the staff that he has employed. So it's not be Jim Ratcliffe making the decision. Someone's saying judge at the end of the season. This isn't a judge at the end of the season conversation anymore, in my opinion. And again, this is going to be where, I don't know, some fans are going to start calling me toxic and start calling it. I know, I like to feel like I'm a level-headed fan. And I think the fact that United We Stand has gone with a cover like that pretty much reflects how I'm feeling about Erik Ten Hag right now. Akash, you saying that Wilcox will have a big say? Yeah, I think Wilcox will have a big say. I mean, he's a technical director. He will be part of the decision. But I personally feel that it's going to be Dan Ashworth who makes the call. And if Wilcox disagrees, then he will voice his opinion. And if Barada disagrees, then they will voice their opinions. But tomorrow is that meeting, all right? And I want to speak about that. David Ornstein was on NBC yesterday saying that it's not going to be for financial reasons that Man United keep Erik Ten Hag. You know, the idea that Man United are so close to FFP and PSR breaches that they can't possibly think about sacking Erik Ten Hag, so they would rather just keep going with Erik Ten Hag to avoid that payoff. David Ornstein says that's not the case. All right. And we know full well that a meeting is scheduled for this week, which I will speak about now. Now, I don't need to run through those two because they're too big. They're too big. Now, Erik here is saying this, look. It's never a good time to go into an international break. You want to keep going. You see we are improving, but now the players go away and every club has to deal with this. And I'm sorry, ladies and gents. And again, this might come across as doom-mongering, but I cannot look at that game yesterday and say that Manchester United are improving. If you ask me to go on TV and sort of explain how Manchester United are improving using the evidence that you saw against Aston Villa, I can't do that. It was a game where we were resolute in box defending, which has happened quite a few times under Erik Ten Hag before. However, it kind of feels, and I said this yesterday, now you might disagree with this, it almost feels with Man United that we're either really good at defence or really good in attack. And we create loads of chances. There aren't that many games where you can say that both of them clicked, that we were just really, really strong in defence. But man, we were so good creating going forward. It's almost like you take away from one to feed the other. And it's been that sort of constant back and forth between a defensive concept and... I mean, look at how Manchester United have set up in these last 3 games. 3 completely different approaches. Now, Spurs, head's gone after 3 minutes. I don't know what the approach would have been in that game, but yesterday... One sec. Spurs being Spurs... kind of makes you annoyed that Bruno got sent off ridiculously, because if Spurs managed that collapse against Brighton yesterday, who's to say that they wouldn't have collapsed in the second half at Old Trafford? Postecoglou, and man, this is the thing, man. Like, honestly, hand on heart, I think Spurs are probably the most exciting team to watch as a neutral in the league. However, they're what? They're 2 points ahead of us. And there's the whole style and philosophy in it. But Postecoglou has got some real strengths as a manager, but some glaring weaknesses, man. It's not all about attack. Well, it certainly wasn't with United yesterday. Anyway, right? Ten Hag's talking about improving. Now, I want to show you here. I might run into this in more detail in a lunchtime video. These are the passing networks that were used against Porto and against Villa. And look at the shape here. The distinct back three. You've got Delo inverting so much that he's sitting on top of Martinez in the average position. And the stronger the arrow, the more that pass happened. So nobody passed through to Højlund against Porto. But look at the difference in shape. How different it was against Villa. 2 games, 2 polar opposite, not polar opposite, but just totally different ways of playing. Now, Paul Scholes, he's not particularly a happy chappy these days, is he? Kind of hasn't been for a long time. And I think it's fair. I don't particularly feel United went to Aston Villa to win. We went there to stay resolute. And if we can get the chances, then we get the chances. But unfortunately, as I said, Bruno, everything broke down through Bruno and we had nothing going forward. And then that big chance at the end there with Garnacho, just the quality wasn't there. Right? And this was, this is, what do you make of this? I'm going to ask you in the comments, right? Bayern is on the bench. Of course he's a backup goalkeeper. De Ligt on the bench, Martinez on the bench, Casemiro on the bench, Ugarte on the bench, Xerxes on the bench, and Antony on the bench. In a game where Erik Ten Hag, if the conversation was correct and Erik Ten Hag needed to win this game to save his job, in that game, we've got 6. There's no point including Bayern there because he's our backup goalkeeper, so it's pretty pointless. But there's 6 of Erik Ten Hag signings there. And he's decided in that game of that importance that he doesn't want to start them. Because he's going for a very different approach. Why would you need to start Ugarte to stop the counter-attacks if you're going to be sitting in a low block so there's not going to be the space that he needs to block? I'd rather start Eriksen so he can try and create from deep. And this is the sort of big difference between last season. That's this season. That's a big difference between this season and last season. So last season when we were down in 10th after 7 games, we had injuries galore, right? This season, right now, there's 6 signings on the bench, and someone's down there, idiot, saying Ugarte was always going to be bedded in after the Spurs loss. So what if 6 signings are on the bench? 6 signings are on the bench, and we go and play like Louis van Gaal. You know, I think that's something I realised yesterday. I've been planning and preparing a video on sort of what is Manchester United's identity. And I remember post-Fergie how anti-Jose Mourinho I was. I can only speak for myself. Can't speak for everybody. But I was like, sod that. United are better. We don't need Mourinho and his defensive style. I don't care if it wins us the league. I would rather win it the United way. And I was completely anti-Mourinho. That changed after a couple of years, after we saw Moyes and after we saw Van Gaal for a couple of years. And then I was like, Mourinho, go on in you come. And that's why that jarred with me so bad yesterday. I was sitting there going, damn, this feels like Van Gaal football. And that's, for me, is the worst. People saying, oh, Sam's head's gone. There's nothing about head's gone, man. I explained to you last week that I've lost a bit of faith, a bit of belief and a bit of trust in Erik Ten Hag as the manager, in the system that we're playing. And I don't see how yesterday changes any part of that, really. Now, the clincher, of course, is this. And I said at the start of the video, I'll say it again now. I don't see why anybody's getting annoyed at the idea, oh, Erik Ten Hag's not been sacked, blah, 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 blah. INEOS haven't even met yet. Well, of course they met. They were at the bloody game yesterday. But the board meeting hasn't happened. And that is going to be happening on Tuesday. All right? So, I suppose come Tuesday evening, come Wednesday, we may... No, so what do you think of the I mean, and you know what the options are, right? The options are either you back Erik Ten Hag, and at this point, you probably would have to come out and give the sort of dreaded vote of confidence, wouldn't you? Sort of saying that Erik Ten Hag continues to say what he's said after sort of every game. He goes, we're on the same page, we're all together. It's a long-term process. Judge at the end of the season. Penny for Jim Ratcliffe's thoughts. Watching that game yesterday. Right? I'm going to go and read some more of your comments out down here. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Klein saying, I feel like we're spoiled as a fan base, especially those of us growing up supporting the club. We really need to stand by the manager and give him time. Klein, it's just that falls on deaf ears for me now. Just a sweeping concept of stand by the manager and give him time. The manager has to show you that he deserves your trust and your belief. And I can only speak about myself here, man. It's partly been eroded by the continuation of problems that we saw last season, by the lack of progress, despite we've got the injuries aren't an issue anymore. It's not just a case of stand by the manager, don't repeat the cycle, because the cycle will not be repeated because of we have a football board and structure in place now. You know, at times when it got to when it reached this point with Solskjaer, with Van Gaal, with Mourinho, pretty much every other manager. The squad, I looked at the squad and I was like, ugh. I was like, you've got to go. We need a new centre mid, 2 centre mids, a left back, centre back. Every time I looked at it and said, we need like 4, 5, 6 signings before we can even be taken seriously. I don't look at this squad and think that now. I think we've got a good squad. Can our squad be better? Of course it can. We're not scoring any goals. I still think we need one powerful central midfielder, and we desperately need a left back. So the squad is far from complete. But I think we had a good summer. Despite the fact that, well, performances right now are not exactly showing that is the case. But yeah, this meeting is happening this week, which is going to be an interesting one to find out what happens. Sai, you're saying, what I can say is Jose Mourinho at least played with a set way of playing. Whilst he was at United, my only gripe with it, sometimes it was too safe. We don't need to speak about Mourinho in too much detail, man. Mourinho had his style. Everybody was sitting there going, it'll be different with Mourinho at United. It won't implode in the third season. It imploded in the third season. Everything that you thought was going to happen with Jose Mourinho happened with Jose Mourinho. Right? Lauren, you're saying Jose had boring football, but at least he won sometimes. Ten Hag doesn't have a style of play after 2 seasons. We chop and change between... It's like you're changing seasonings every single meal. It's like you play a certain way in Europe, apparently, away from home. Or maybe not just away from home, but a certain way in Europe and then a certain way... And I asked this question before. You know, should you go into games with your own set style of play, or should you go in there and sort of adapt yourself to the opposition and expose their weaknesses? I think you do the latter until you reach a level where you are just a very, very good football team, and then you just play your way and you force everybody else to react to you. Now, ultimately, that's what we all want United to be. But truth be told, is we're not good enough right now to do that, to impose ourselves into games. So that's why the Crystal Palace first half worked so well, because I think we set up to expose weaknesses that Crystal Palace had, and we really did that very easily, but we just couldn't finish our dinner. Look, guys, this might sound like a hilarious thing to say, given that we've struggled with how we've played, but it's very easy to explain Erik Ten Hag's sort of approach to football. We've seen, but not really at Manchester United. That's the issue. It's coming, probably you're going to be going back to that first season. And again, you're going to go to that 6-week period. Just go and watch how Manchester United played between January 22 and until we beat Newcastle in the League Cup final. That right there was the best, probably that we're ever going to see under Erik Ten Hag. And it's really sad that we're talking about the first season is when we saw the best example of it. It's just never been built on. Because second season, we switched to a different system. 1 number 6, 2 number 8s. The concept was to be more proactive. It didn't work. We got exposed massively, all the spaces in behind. Third season, we've had a little bit of a pivot as well. We've signed Ugarte. We've switched up. The inverted fullbacks become all more important. And inverted fullback existed, but kind of not too much until after Luke Shaw got injured and Dalot ended up playing left back. I think we started inverting more. Prior to that, Malacia was doing it more than Luke Shaw because he knew how to play the role. Yeah, but I think Erik sort of changed the direction. Yeah, and you're talking about there about how, after Liverpool beat us and Slot explained in like a minute and a half, goes, well, this is how United were going to play. So this is how we set up. And yeah, we were able to expose the weaknesses. That's what would have happened yesterday, by the way, had we not dumped or just ditched the Dalot inversion. Because we stopped that and he ended up hugging the touchline so much more, there wasn't that huge space. If you had inverted Dalot and played Johnny Evans, he would not have had a man of the match performance that he had yesterday, that he did. It was because he had the security of, I'm not saying that in a bad way, but Johnny Evans is 36. You can't, anybody, it's unreasonable. Martinez, a big reason why Martinez looks so crap this season is because he's having to cover like 40, 50 yard spaces. And a big part of that is the inversion. Let me go down here and read some of your comments. Bring back Ron Atkinson. Jeez. Jonathan, about Rashford saying he's gone mad on the bench. Just piss off those sorts of videos on social media, man. What are you, a lip reading expert? Oh, look at the body language of Rude. Oh, he's obviously disagreeing with him. You're looking into things. You're seeing things that fit the narrative that you've got in your head. Gus with a sort of a fair, I think that's a fair question to pose to everybody, really. Oh, no, man, you've retracted the message. Well, I'm going to ask it anyway. You say, if just back the manager or, process, you need time. At what point do you make that call that you're not seeing the progress that you want to see? And I think that's a really honest question to ask United fans. Now, everybody's got their tipping point. And tipping points vary according to just person to person. At what point for anybody who down there right now in the comments who feels that Man United should ride this wave, should continue through until at least the November international break to see what we can do against the likes of, was it Brentford next? I think it's Fenerbahce away. At what point do you then go, I'm not sure actually. At what point this season does it change for you? Right. I'm going to go down here and read some more comments. I think there might be a couple of super chats that I missed. All right. So let me go back and read these. Halftime Orange is saying that Ten Hag got his 2 former centre-backs and instead he has to rely on a 36-year-old Johnny Evans because he can't properly use or develop either of them. I don't think it's about using or developing either of them. I think it's the fact that they both played really poorly against Porto and were massively exposed by the system that we played. And in that box defending style, Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire are 2 very, very good box defenders. Now, box defending, it's exactly what it says on the tin. You want your centre-backs not really to be engaging too high up the pitch, too far out, away from their box. It's about protecting that box. The opposition can have the ball, but don't let them sort of get too many runs inside that box. And that's where Johnny Evans and Maguire are very good centre-backs. But it suited a system yesterday against Villa, which made us solid defensively, but was part of the reason why we just had nothing going forward. Alex is saying Ten Hag's most expensive signing of the summer hasn't even made his debut yet. Give him until Christmas, then evaluate. The next run of games are easier. Need a left back in January. Man, I think I said this the other week. And I feel for Lenny Yoro. He must be looking at this going, whew, I didn't expect that to happen. Johnny Evans was great. And we will speak about the game in a little bit, but the conversation is around Erik Ten Hag right now. Jay Moore saying Ten Hag's not the real problem. He's not the one on the field. And this reaches a point towards the end of managers' reigns where you start pointing fingers towards players or managers, and it's like, and that's when it starts getting like really toxic. It's like, who do you blame more and who's more at fault? And truth be told, as has been the case with every manager and with every player, nobody is faultless. Nobody can walk out and say, I haven't done anything wrong. Clearly you have, because we're 14th. Tech, as you say, majority of players have already made the decision. We see that in their performances. I'm not looking at players people love to say, players are down tools and stuff like that. I don't think that's the case. I just don't think we're very good right now. I just don't think they particularly know what they're doing on a game-by-game basis. And it must be difficult. Like to play how we played away against Porto with a very different build-up structure compared to what we played only a few days earlier against Spurs, and then a totally different style of play against Villa. And that's where the cohesion struggles, because it's like getting out of one car to drive another car to drive another car. It's like, well, the gears feel a bit different. It's a bit odd. Oh, fucking hell, those brakes are a bit sharper. You can't get used to it. And that's that concept of shifting style according to who you're playing. It's a delicate balance, man. Sai, you're saying you think Southgate will be the new manager. That's the last super chat I'm ever reading out from you. Well, that was a waste of $5. He's coming nowhere near. Sam talking as if he's managed a football club before. Shit me, man. How dare I try and give you some feelings of what I think about watching Manchester United. What a ridiculous concept of mine. Yeah, fair enough, actually. I should probably go somewhere else and just, I don't know, go for a walk. I think Jim Ratcliffe's expression is exactly how I feel. I go back to my video that I did before the season started. And I said, I need to see development from Manchester United this season. Manchester United 2.0. The biggest word for me was control of games of football. Now, technically, we had control of that game yesterday. Aston Villa, after Bayern, were clearly flat. But we didn't take advantage of it. We couldn't take advantage of it. The finishing wasn't there. Do I think that Xerxes and Højlund are awful players? How many chances did we create for them yesterday? Don't think we created any. Did we actually create any for them? Not sure. But I wanted to see progress. And instead, Manchester United, after 7 games, are worse off than we were last season. And that Aston Villa game, look, if Gary Neville is indeed correct, right, that's bought him some time. And I disagree with it. I don't think that changes any sort of conversations that exist. So, the thing here, right, moving forward, so I'll go back to the poll again. I think thank you for everybody for sort of sending in your questions and your comments today. It's not a fucking nice time to be a United fan. It hasn't been since 2013. We'll be back at some point. I'm not worried about that. But it's we're all sick and tired of the cycles, which is why the concept of, just back the manager, have the trust the process, and that's the thing I just can't trust anymore. I don't know what our process is right now. What our process is going into that game against Villa and just making sure that we don't concede because of everything that's happened previously. In the concept, a draw away at Porto and a draw away at Villa. Take out the context. You go, that's fair enough. But slap it on to just coming off the back of a 3-0 to Spurs and the frustrations of Palace away and the humiliation against Liverpool. It's I just don't trust the process of what Erik Ten Hag is building anymore, because I don't know what it is. And I know that a lot of people have said that, but I look at that game against Crystal Palace in the first half and I pointed at it. I was like that Leo meme. Was it Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? He's just pointing at the screen and go, there you go. I was like, there you go. That first half against Crystal Palace. That right there is what I thought that we were going towards and what I hoped and what I was excited about. Patient build-up out from the back. No panic at all. None. Just good structure. Playing through Crystal Palace. Chance created. 3, 4, 5 golden opportunities. And we missed them all. And that's because Man United's finishing just been woeful this season. Garnacho hit the bar. Bruno, 5 wide. Just awful. The finishing was awful. And that's all I've really got to hold on to. So that's why I've lost faith in sort of where Erik Ten Hag is trying to take this team, because I think even he's kind of semi-lost faith. And I'll be totally honest, right? Let's go to this again. The way that Erik Ten Hag set up here in this game tells you that even in that game there, Ten Hag lost faith in his own approach and his own system. That Ten Hag didn't come here and envisage Manchester United keeping a clean sheet and sneaking a winner. But that's what he needed to do in that game against Aston Villa. So he even lost faith in the players, his own players, in executing his system, his actual philosophy or identity, because he didn't think it would work against Villa. And that's why so many of those players were on the bench. Can I just say this, right? I'm 42 minutes into the show before I mention this just crap from the main man himself, Samuel Luckhurst. Thomas Tuchel is under consideration. I could go on a date with Jennifer Lopez. Me buying a new Tesla is currently under consideration. All right? Just letting you know those two things. Of course it was Samuel Luckhurst coming this morning. Who could have predicted that? Apart from absolutely everybody. Akash is saying, Sam, would you have given him a 1-year contract extension after the cup final? Yes. I've already said that. Because I trusted the concept of the process of where I thought that we were going to develop this season and saying, right, well, if we build on that performance from the FA Cup final, where we showed that we can play as a really solid collective team and play great football as well and do it on the big occasion, then we can do it. Let's build on that. Let's build towards it. And I thought we had a good summer. And I thought we were set up quite well. But it's just, so much of this season has reverted to last season. And the fact that I've pulled up a Van Gaal comparison, I think will show you that, yeah, I've lost quite a bit of faith in this system. Someone else down there in the comment. So, Loza, you're considering yourself for the job. Olea, you're considering yourself as well. It's good, all right? It's good. I'm glad that. So there's a couple of people down here in the comments who could be United's next manager. So watch out for that. You heard that exclusive here. Whopper, absolute whopper of a man. And look, let's just quickly speak about the game yesterday. And this is from Dimitar Berbatov. And he said, yeah, and I said it in my match. I think I might have said it in my match reaction. Last season, when Erik Ten Hag was under a lot of pressure and we went away to Burnley, was that, I think, if I remember correctly, was that in and around the Champions League games? Were we knocked out of the Champions League? Was that like Copenhagen? I think it's there or thereabouts when we played Burnley. We went away to Burnley at Turf Moor. We won 1-0. Johnny Evans was man of the match. He got the assist with the ball over the top to that first time Bruno volley, which was an insane goal. And then a year on, we've got a game where Erik Ten Hag and the pressure is on substantially and he reverts to a different style. And it got the clean sheet. It may have kept the Wolves from kicking the door down, but it didn't give any sort of belief to a fan. I can't speak for anybody else. To a fan like me who wanted to see progress. Zach, you're saying that the Burnley game was after the first Munich game. Don't know. Alan saying, Sam, where is the patience you were talking about? 7 games in and you're already calling for the sack. Dude, if you want to try and sort of gaslight me and you want to sort of try and suggest that I'm not paid, then cool. Like, you be you. I've explained everything here for 45 minutes. All right. And if you can't, if that's really the opinion you've got at this point, then you probably haven't listened to what I've been saying. All right. But Johnny Evans was absolutely mustard yesterday. Deserved all the praise in the world. And I think if Erik Ten Hag is sacked, I think there's two. I might do a video on this. I might not because it'll be a bit depressing. But I think the two biggest errors that Erik Ten Hag made this was the decision in the second season to switch the system to 1 number 6 and 2 number 8s and buying accordingly and buying Mason Mount for that system. And number 2 was focusing heavily on the inversion and the inversion of Delo, the inversion of our left back. Those 2 things have structure and the front press. Those 3 things, I think, tactically are the things which have made Manchester United so weak, and so kind of easy to set up a game plan to play against. JC, is a really nice super chat there, and that's correct, man. Let me pull this up again. Best of luck to Andy Mitten and Brian Robson, who are climbing Kilimanjaro. Let me see if I can pull the link up here. I think Andy put it on his Twitter. One sec. Or not Twitter, X, whatever the fuck it's called. They are climbing Kilimanjaro, if I remember correctly. They are climbing it for Manchester United Foundation. So let me see if I can find... There it is here. So the Just Given page here. I'll do a little donation from United People's TV after. If you want to, that's the link to it there. They're climbing Kilimanjaro. So yeah, if you want to donate, that'll be a cool thing for you to do. Yeah, and yesterday, like, look, Man United were awful in attack. Had nothing. So much, unfortunately, was a consequence of Bruno not being able to find that final ball. Whether it was the ball to Rashford that was just like 3 or 4 yards over hit, and there was another ball, just like typically Bruno would just, he'd do those, he'd close his eyes and he was doing it. Not right now. 3 or 4 inches too high on the free kick. That free kick was so unlucky. So unlucky. When was the last time United scored from a direct free kick like that? Can't remember. No idea. I'm going to pull up that. This is the most important thing that is happening this week. The meeting between Manchester United's football board. So Brailsford was at Villa Park. Ratcliffe was there. Ashworth was there. Barada was there. And Wilcox was there. They're all going to be discussing what to do with Erik Ten Hag. Now, my initial concept this season, I agree with Gary Neville, that Erik Ten Hag would probably get until November time to show development. I expected that, and there was a response, by the way, after the Liverpool humiliation. It was Southampton 3-0 away, and it was the enjoyable game of beating Barnsley 7-0. And then that first half against Palace, and it was like that felt, it's like a couple of wins under their belt, and all of a sudden a bit of confidence came back into these players, and look at what they can do. But the confidence wasn't there with the finishing. And then in the second half, Crystal Palace knew what to do, and they came out and they beat us. And then everything that has happened since then, the humiliation against Spurs, just a collapse away at Porto, where mentally the game was completely in our grasp. We've done all the hard work, but just completely our asses fell out. And then the needs-must performance against Villa. I've got no idea what INEOS are going to do. I really don't. I don't know whether they're going to stick with him and see what he can do between now and November. But how much trust and belief do Ashworth and all that have in Ten Hag and the road that we are on now compared to before? Now, I've explained why I've lost some trust and faith and belief in the system, in the approach, and in the process. And if you can't understand that, and you just want to label me as someone who's just impatient and I'm spoiled and I'm toxic, then okay, you're like, you do you. Because it's like you can't say things these days without somebody being pissed off about it. That's the way the world works these days. I see 2,100 votes. Can I say to everybody, thank you for sort of joining in these conversations in the morning. I try to be as honest as I can be. But 53% of you are saying you think that INEOS will stick with Erik Ten Hag, and 47% of you are saying no. It's still right on the middle. But Christ, like if Erik does get the opportunity to see out the next... Let's have a quick look here before we finish the show. Let's have a quick look at our next games before the international break. Because there's one more international break. Bloody international breaks, man. There's one more international break coming this year, right? If Erik Ten Hag is given the opportunity, then he has got these games. He's got Brentford at home. He's got Fenerbahce away, West Ham away, Leicester at home, Chelsea at home, and PAOK at the 7 games actually at home, and then Leicester at home in the league. So that's the cup up there, isn't it? So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. 7 games until that next international break there. If Erik Ten Hag is afforded the opportunity, those would be the 7 games that he would have where it's like you either show continuous progress and development at this point, or it's game, set, and match. And I think even those who disagree with me currently in the comments would probably agree with that concept. And I'll be honest, that was the first marker I put down. I just think it kind of got accelerated a little bit by just kind of how poor we have been in this international break. Look, right, I'm going to wrap that up for today. Thank you all for tuning in. Damn. I'm so glad I got to enjoy my being a kid, man. Thank you, United. Boy, you are taxing. It's a false dawn, isn't it? And I think that's what's different about Ten Hag. It didn't feel like a false dawn. It felt like I can actually see it. See it there. Nope. That's not happening anymore. Look, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for your comments and your super chats. I will be back here live tomorrow morning, and I'll do a lunchtime video today. All right? International break's going to be a long one.